Today on Hearts of Heroes, when a Category 5 hurricane hits a coastal Florida city, complete strangers rise up to save one another.
We had bath towels over our head. All of a sudden, Paul said, "There goes the roof."
But then the sheetrock started falling on us. I said, okay, I gotta get us out of here.
And later, when a raging California wildfire heads straight for a crowded animal shelter, pet-loving police officers rush in.
Let's go for a ride, come on, come on.
Heroes don't hesitate, they just act, and act out of sheer bravery.
The Gulf Coast of Florida is unfortunately quite familiar with tropical storms and hurricanes, and most of the folks who live there know what to do and how to prepare for them.
But when a Category 2 grew to a Category 5, one Florida community found themselves facing one of the worst hurricanes in the state's history.
Located on the Gulf Coast of Florida, Lynn Haven is a small suburb of Panama City. The area is known for its white sand beaches, crystal blue oceans, and down-home appeal.
Lynn Haven is a beautiful small town. We have our own little haven here. It's well manicured and it's just a great place to live.
The neighborhoods are close together. A lot of people know each other. Everybody knows their neighbors, and it goes throughout the entire town like that.
Lots of community events. A little bit slower than out on the beach where you have all the tourists and everything else, so a little more friendly, laid back.
But because it's on the Gulf of Mexico, Lynn Haven can also be known for its turbulent tropical weather.
I've been through several hurricanes, and they usually were a Category 2 or Category 3. Nothing major, high winds, rain, that was it.
While people thought that they were prepared, Mother Nature had other plans when Hurricane Michael hit in October of 2018.
The residents of Lynn Haven were expecting a heavy storm, but nothing major. However, overnight their worst nightmares were about to come to fruition.
Paul Christensen works for the local power company and was preparing for a potentially busy workday.
We have to get everything prepared and set for any hurricane. We want to make sure to get the lights on as soon as possible.
But by the next morning, Michael had jumped to a Category 4 hurricane and soon would touch right into Cat 5.
When emergency services and your police departments and your first responders tell people to get out of town, they need to listen. They need to go. We tried to evacuate, and out of the 160,000 people in the zones, we estimated about 20,000 left.
Hurricane Michael swelled into a monster, a Category 5 with winds up to 160 miles per hour. At this point, it was too late for Paul Christensen, his wife Stacy, and their dog Ginger to escape the violent storm.
It was definitely getting scary. They had already warned that if you had not evacuated at that time to hunker down.
It started intensifying. The neighbors over here, their trees started falling across the street. The neighbor had a big tree that fell across the road.
And all of a sudden he said, "That's it, get in the bathtub, let's go." So we ran into the bathroom. Ginger, my husband, me, we were ready for a storm. I don't think we were ready for what was about to hit us. All of a sudden, Paul said, "There goes the roof."
Instantly, I could feel rain, wind. I could hear the living room being churned, just. But then the sheetrock started falling on us. I said, okay, I gotta get us out of here.
With their home crumbling around them, Paul and Stacy's only hope was to seek refuge in one of their vehicles. But they now faced another dilemma.
When we got to the garage, it was collapsed on both vehicles, so we had to crawl into it, and her car was gone. And my truck was still somewhat okay. The front windshield was smashed, so we had to crawl on glass, and we just kind of waited in there.
My ceiling started falling in. We heard trees falling. Suddenly, my son yelled at me again, "Get away from the window," and the window blew. And the storm was at the fiercest it had ever been.
I don't really know how to explain it. You just hear this really loud roaring noise, winds just whipping everything around. It was honestly, it was really scary.
For more than 2 hours, the hurricane battered the homes up and down their street. Eventually, the storm subsided, but the damage to the neighborhood was unimaginable.
My neighborhood is no more.
That's when my husband noticed a house across the street. The house had fallen in. We went outside. All I heard was, I see brake lights, and we looked across at the house, and everybody started running to help them.
When we heard the voices of the neighbors looking around and looking at the different houses, it was a complete sense of relief. I had opened the door so the lights came on, and I was yelling to let them know where we were.
My husband and my son and a couple of other men were just ripping stuff away, and I was just kind of standing back waiting because I knew there was a woman in there.
Stacy and Paul were finally rescued from their collapsing garage. They sustained some injuries, but they had survived.
As they came out, Stacy came out with Ginger. The look of, I don't know, you have to say horror on her face, and I just grabbed her and hugged her. I mean, to watch somebody lose everything they had in a matter of hours, I knew this was going to be tough on her.
The residents of Lynn Haven had courageously made it through Hurricane Michael, but with so much damage to their community, they faced the daunting task of cleaning up and rebuilding.
Coming up, how the Gulf Coast rebuilds following one of the most destructive hurricanes in history.
We've got to find a way to fix that. We've got students that have no place to live. They may not even have the resources to leave town.
And later, 2 officers race to rescue a shelter full of animals from a raging wildfire.
I remember looking at Officer Jennings and saying, I don't think we're going to be able to get these animals out.
But first, something to keep you safe.
Emergencies and disasters can strike quickly and often without warning. They can force you to evacuate your neighborhood or potentially be confined to your home or other structure for some time until help can arrive.
To ensure the greatest amount of safety for you and your family, prepare in advance by making a safety plan and rehearsing it with your loved ones. You should also put together a preparedness kit complete with water, food, and medical essentials.
Knowing what to do in case of natural disaster is your responsibility. Prepare now, so you'll have the greatest chance of securing safety.
On October 10th, 2018, Hurricane Michael ripped the town of Lynn Haven, Florida, to shreds. Paul and Stacy Christensen had survived the hurricane, but now had to come to grips with the fact that they no longer had a home. Fortunately, their neighbors came to the rescue.
We had the Weavers, really nice neighbors. They were nice enough to let us stay with them. We had no clothes, no shoes, except what we had on.
They stayed for a couple days. He went back and forth to Gulf Power to see what was going on with his job and whatnot, but they were able to get his truck out after one point and then get out of town for a bit.
You see this time and time again. In the worst of situations, the best of humanity comes out. This was a perfect example of neighbors helping neighbors.
Everybody being so close in neighborhoods and, you know, being that small bedroom community, everybody's pitching in together. Everybody's helping everybody.
Months after the hurricane, Paul, Stacy, and Ginger are making plans to rebuild on the same lot where their home used to be.
That's where our driveway was. This is where we had to get into the garage right here.
And while it was one of the most terrifying experiences of their lives, they will forever be grateful for the kindness of the Weavers.
My biggest thing for the Weavers would just be thank you. Thank you for taking us in, for seeing what we needed, and I can't wait to be your guys' neighbor again.
I'm so glad that they're gonna rebuild because I told her we're like friends now and I consider Ginger my baby. I loved on her, I took her for walks, and I think Stacy saw that I loved her baby.
Meanwhile, Gulf Coast College president John Holdnack also found his campus ravaged by Hurricane Michael.
We faced 165-mile-an-hour sustained winds. We had gusts of 182 miles an hour. The impact on this campus was pretty significant. We're somewhere between $25 and $30 million worth of damage so far.
John knew it was vitally important to get the college up and running again, not just for the students, but for the staff whose livelihood depended on it.
The college isn't made up of buildings, it's made up of people. We can replace everything that you see around us. If it were completely wiped off the map, we could replace it. What I can't replace is the 400 full-time and 400 part-time employees that I have. They are irreplaceable.
John turned to our sponsor, Belfour, to help in the cleanup process.
The rebuilding process here is first and foremost to get all the wet impacted material out of here, to temporarily cover the roofs so that we don't have any more water impact. And then from that point, we're already starting to get ready for the repair process.
Gulf Coast College is confident that they're going to be up and running in just a matter of weeks.
It's not just fixing a roof or redoing the drywall. It's getting these students back in so they feel like back where they were before the hurricane happened.
Coming up, first responders do everything they can to save a shelter full of animals from a Northern California wildfire.
Let's go, doggy, come on.
We just had to do what we could in the few minutes that we had.
Get in. Let's go, dog.
But first, this safety tip.
These days, thanks to science, severe weather can be predicted and many catastrophes forewarned.
Whether it's storm sirens or a call to evacuate, if you're being warned about something bad approaching you, follow the evacuation orders or take cover.
It's better to be safe and heed those warnings than to later wish you had. You and your family's safety is of utmost importance.
In the last couple of years, California just keeps setting records when it comes to acreage burned and wildfires. And when they rage, it's not just humans, but animals too, who are at risk.
When a wildfire raced toward an animal shelter in Northern California, 2 brave police officers put their lives on the line to help out some furry friends.
The Solano County SPCA has been a pillar of the community for more than 40 years, helping place animals in need of homes.
We are a nonprofit animal shelter. We do adoptions for dogs, cats, birds, snakes, hamsters, pretty much anything.
This shelter helped me build me into the person I am today, helped make me the officer I am today in regards to the way I deal with animals.
Yet on August 11, 2018, danger was looming over this pristine Northern California animal shelter.
As I came into work, I heard my supervisor and some of the other officers talking about the smoke plume that was coming in to go take a look at it.
Wildfires are a major concern for first responders in this part of the country. And unlike many other natural disasters, wildfires can be completely unpredictable.
We get fires here in Vacaville probably routinely every summer, but that one had the potential to really destroy a lot of homes and a lot of structures.
As the Nelson fire now raged toward Vacaville, firefighters were battling the blaze from all angles, and police officers were tasked with helping evacuate those trapped in the danger zone.
Some of the other officers on my shift went over to the Lagoon Valley area and started evacuating some of the more rural ranch areas, and also started looking for ways to save some of the livestock and the cattle that was trapped out there by the flames.
In wildfire situations, it's absolutely critical for our emergency responders to deploy their resources as wisely as possible. In this case, they were right on top of it.
My sergeant said, "Hey, can anybody see the flames that are on the other side of the hill?" And I looked up and I was right there and I was like, "I see the flames." And he was like, "The SPCA might need evacuations."
Since the shelter was already closed for the day, there were just 2 employees left, with more than 80 dogs and cats on the premises and a fast-moving fire closing in. Kennel manager Bridget Bloch was across town when she got an urgent call from her boss.
Basically, she said, "We have to evacuate, there's a fire, I need you to get here now." It took me about 5-ish minutes to get here, and I was stopped at the roadblock about half a mile down the street, and they weren't letting anyone else in.
The conditions were worsening by the minute.
When Officer Jennings and I got there, it was only the 2 of us and 2 other SPCA staff because it was after hours. The plume of smoke coming over the hill was getting closer, that it was windy, so I knew we probably didn't have much time before the flames were right there.
When everyone else is running out, our first responders are running in.
One of our senior officers, he stood on the backside of the hill and said, I'll wait here, and when the flames are close, I'm gonna tell you that's it, because we can't risk anybody's life.
All the animals know something's wrong. They hear the sirens, they feel the stress.
As smoke filled the sky in this peaceful community, the officers were faced with a rather stressful reality. They were informed that they might need to leave the shelter immediately.
Our sergeant actually had told us that we needed to leave and to go evacuate houses. which is understandable. There were people's, potential lives that were at risk.
I remember looking at Officer Jennings and saying, I don't think we're going to be able to get these animals out. Maybe we should just open up the doors and give them a chance to at least run for it.
Coming up, can these officers save the helpless animals in time before the fire reaches the shelter?
Get in. That's good dog.
But first, some helpful information for you.
50 years ago, the first 911 call was made. That simple 3-digit sequence is memorized by hundreds of millions of Americans and has saved countless lives.
New technology like unmanned aerial vehicles have helped save lives by allowing rescuers to find missing people and also to deliver life-saving supplies in areas of need.
By harnessing technology, we can help provide first responders with crucial tools and information they need to help us all, turning minutes into seconds and victims into survivors.
An out-of-control wildfire was threatening the town of Vacaville, California. A crowded animal shelter lay right in harm's way.
It was just one of those crazy things where you knew you had a limited amount of time to get something done, and we just had to do what we could in the few minutes that we had.
Officers Stone and Jennings of the Vacaville Police Department raced against time to help evacuate helpless pets from a local animal shelter.
During that time, I remember just trying to put dogs anywhere that we could. I did get some kittens in the beginning as well.
As quickly as possible, the officers ushered as many animals out of the building as they physically could. Pets of all shapes and sizes, many of whom had already been rescued from other bad situations, were now being rescued again, this time from the threat of an approaching fire.
We were really lucky that a Humane Animal Services officer came with his truck, which fit a lot of animals.
I had a Great Pyrenees and a small little poodle thing stuffed in one side of my vehicle. I had a shepherd in the back with some kittens. Everybody was just everywhere.
It was kind of all hands on deck. They ended up grabbing, there was a woman driving by in a pickup truck, and they flagged her down. We're like, hey, we need your truck, come here.
With the fire burning ever closer and the clock ticking down, Officers Stone and Jennings loaded up their own patrol cars with dogs as well.
Get in. That's good dog.
And miraculously, after those frantic few minutes of adrenaline-fueled teamwork, the SPCA shelter was emptied, with all the threatened animals now on the road to safety.
It was a big sigh of relief to be getting in my patrol car and driving away from those flames and not having to worry about them overtaking us.
As soon as we cleared the area, the fire department had showed up and started doing building protection, so that kind of made us feel better. As soon as we left, my sergeant's like, okay, get rid of the dogs. We got people to evacuate.
Officer Jennings and the volunteers did drop their animals off at a nearby staging area. However, Officer Stone continued to work the rest of her shift with some very special partners.
I actually had one small dog in my front seat and 2 larger dogs in the back. They actually seemed pretty happy back there, so I just immediately went over and helped with evacuations until my supervisor realized they were still in the car and was like, you should probably go give them back.
At the end of the day, all the animals were safe, thanks to the heroic actions of the police officers and the volunteers who helped them.
This is my home. I love the shelter. I will always love the shelter. I need to protect the animals. I consider all these animals here like my family.
Heroes are the best of humanity in the worst of times.
And thanks to the incredible work of the firefighters that day, the shelter was safe too, with the flames halted less than 50 yards away.
We walked the fence line, we were able to see how close it came to our buildings, and we just realized how lucky we were that the fire department and the police officers who helped evacuate and who were here to protect our buildings, we were just so thankful for them.
The Solano County SPCA will never forget these officers who truly saved the day, and not just because of what they did during the fire. After helping rescue more than 80 animals that day, Officer Carly Stone made a permanent connection.
This is actually Sean, the dog that was in the front seat as we drove away from the fire that day and is now the newest member of our family.
You don't have to wear a uniform to be called a hero, because anybody who steps up in a moment of crisis can get that label.
Today, we've seen how both first responders and everyday people put their lives on the line to help those who needed it most.
Thanks so much for watching. We hope to see you next time on Hearts of Heroes.